Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Trying to get in the mood today because it's just a gloomy day. It rained so much yesterday and it was so hot. It was like 90 degrees down here, y'all. So I hate the heat. The heat just brings me down. But my room is cold, so I'm in a good mood. I was like, I'm okay to record. Kind of recorded late today. It's currently 3 o'clock and I don't normally record this late, but I wanted to talk about this because we're talking about Suzanne Smith. I know her case. I've heard about it. She was convicted of killing her 2 kids. She confessed that she drowned them in the lake, got out the car last minute, which is insane. I just can't believe that somebody could do that to their kids. And you know what, realistically now I could believe it because there's so much that like this is happening more and more. But this was in like 1994, I believe, and this woman is up for parole, y'all. So, and the fact that on here she put, I guess that she said, and I quote, she would be a good stepmother. Once again, this is why people do not need to get out of prison. You got them thinking acting delusional over here. Like, lady, don't even, I think she's still mentally ill because like, don't ever. The fact that she would even have a like mother in her sentence, don't never need to have kids again. Don't never need to be a stepmom again. Also hurt that she was moved from different prisons from sleeping with guards. Like, what? No remorse for this woman. Don't care about this woman, but I'm curious about why she's up for parole. I guess it was during that, you know, it was 1994. I believe it was 1994. She didn't get a death penalty, which she deserved. I believe any child killer deserved death penalty. Her kids were strapped into their car seat and they was tossed into the lake. Like, how dark can it get other than that? The fact that they was able not to get her that is just, that's a lot. I don't know. That's so really heartbreaking for the kids. Oh my God, how can somebody do that? And then for 9 days, this woman played innocent, acting like, I heard they said she said a black man carjacked them and kidnapped her kids. You came up with this whole story. That's how you know some people are really crazy. And they diagnosed her with depression. Look, y'all gonna hate me because I know a lot of people get diagnosed with things, okay? I know that's what it is. That's the, like, it's just mental health in general. I get it. But when this stuff is involved like this, they need to also study the fact that there are people that are evil, okay? Everybody, I think they try to throw mental health on everything. I heard about her childhood. Her dad killed himself. She was abused. I know it. And it's, you know what's crazy about that? It always, I feel like most of the time, it always turned out like this. These are the people who have like childhoods like that. And I'm not surprised because I've seen it all. I've heard it all these true crime stories, stuff about serial killers. They have the same background. So I'm not, it's crazy to say, not surprised it ended up being like that for her. You know, you have to want the change, and it's sad. It's a hard road to do when you have that much abuse and that much trauma, and you know, you don't go through the right grief steps to get past that. You always go down the dark road. She went down a dark road, a really dark road. She do not need to ever be a mother again. Is it a law where they can say you're not allowed to have kids, and if you're allowed to have kids, you need to go back to prison? That's what she need. So anyways, let's get into it.
Whoever has my children, that they please bring them home.
That was Susan Smith in October 1994, begging for the safe return of her 2 young sons, who it turned out she murdered. Now Smith's coming up for parole, and the prosecutor who put her in prison is here to say whether or not he believes she should be released. Thanks for joining me for Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. The case of Susan Smith and her missing sons captured the attention of the nation. This was back, of course, before everyone had a cell phone. It was before social media. And the search for Smith's 2 sons, 3-year-old Michael and 14-month-old Alexander, was the top story on the national news for days. Smith called police in Union, South Carolina, and claimed a black man carjacked her and took the car with her 2 little boys in the back seat. As you saw, Smith went on national television begging for the carjacker to...
You know what's crazy? That's a psychopathic move. When you can do that to your own kids, and then a child, at first a child, but then to your own kids, and then to go on TV and act like nothing wrong. Yeah, that's definitely mental, because that's not a normal thing at all. And if you're able to do that, it's something wrong with you. Like, they should really, I'm pretty sure they studied her, because this is like a textbook case of crazy. But yeah, y'all gonna hate me for saying that, but that's the truth. I don't care. I don't care what you say. That's a psychopathic move. Just to like watch your like. Why would you do that? How can somebody do that? Y'all, I need my glasses. I need my glasses.
Bring back her children. But the entire time, little Michael and Alexander, those poor defenseless little boys,
bodies?
were strapped in their car seats. They were dead in the back seat of their mother's car that she had let roll into the bottom of John D. Long Lake. A jury found Smith guilty, but opted to send her to prison for life instead of giving her the death penalty. Later this year, Susan Smith will be up for parole because at the time she was sentenced, life didn't mean life. She would be eligible for parole after serving just 30 years. Since she's been in prison, Susan Smith has been in some trouble. She's been caught using drugs. She's had sexual relationships, including one with a prison guard. She's lost phone and canteen privileges a number of times, but hasn't been in trouble since about 2015. One thing that I think is important to note, Susan Smith has been in prison for almost 30 years, and she has not earned one educational credit. Not one. But she has spent a lot of time talking to people who want to date her. The now defunct outlet The Messenger reported last year that Smith told one man that she thought she'd be a good stepmom. And that man was quoted as saying back to her, "You'd be great, babe." Prosecutors argued at trial that Susan Smith killed her son.
Y'all know something? I'm not surprised. These little pen pal people, they don't be knowing. But you know what? Some people do be knowing. It's just some sick people. And he must be crazy too, because I'm like, you know her, but you're only talking to her because you know that she's like, that there's not, this woman's not famous, okay? She's famous for the wrong thing. But they don't care. Just some sick people.
Because a man she was having an affair with told her in a letter that he didn't want children. Smith, meanwhile, claimed she had a psychotic breakdown and had garnered some sympathy because her stepfather had sexually abused her as a teenager. Joining me is somebody who knows more about Susan Smith's case than anybody. He's Tommy Pope. He prosecuted Susan Smith and put her in prison. Tommy, thanks for coming on. Take me back. Yeah, thank you. Take me back to 1994 and getting that call that these two little boys were missing.
Sure. So I was the elected solicitor. That's our district attorney here in South Carolina. I had two counties. I had York, which was my larger, more affluent county, and then Union County, which was my smaller county. Actually, when this case came up, the initial report of the carjacker, I'd been a law enforcement officer before. I'd worked at the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. And so when I heard the carjacker story, it just didn't really jive. I was staying in touch with the SLED agents. They would call me. I was actually in trial over in York County. I tell people I was doing the Lord's work. I was prosecuting the preacher who had embezzled from the daycare center. So I was doing the heavy lifting over there. But I got a call most nights on the way the investigation was going. I think it went like 9 days with Susan pleading to the media and all this.
Yeah.
And then I remember I had just finished that case, and I got a call that the boys had been located in John D. Long Lake. So I got in the car and went down to John D. Long Lake that night.
When you get to the lake and you see that vehicle pulled out of the water and these poor little boys, I mean, these are the most defenseless. I mean, 14 months, 3 years old.
Right.
They're in their car seats.
Right.
And they've been placed in a lake by their mother, the most defenseless of victims. I just can't even imagine.
And that's the thing. It's like the darkest part about it, because the whole thing is dark, okay? This woman strapped them in. Kids are not taught, if you don't teach them to swim, they're not taught to hold their breath underwater. So who knows how long, and I don't even want to think about that, it's so sad, but realistically how long that took. And they were gone 9 days, and just, I don't want to imagine it. It's so sad. But yeah, they're not taught, they're so innocent. And she was talking about she was going to kill herself. She was never going to kill herself. She just wanted to get rid of her kids. I don't have sympathy for anybody like that. Yeah, she spent 30 years in prison. 30 years. Kid killers deserve life in prison. I'm surprised she did not get life in prison. But it didn't have the audacity to say she'd be a good stepmom. She wouldn't be around kids. That's how you know she's sick. Because she's not even thinking about her other kids. She's sick. Sick to the mind. Y'all, I really have no empathy for child killers or child predators because she fit the criteria for them all.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I've been to it in my law enforcement career and in my prosecution career, I've been to a lot of crime scenes. And I went there intentionally because, we'd already kind of dealt with the 9 days media pressure. So you knew it was going to be O.J. Simpson was going on at the time. And this was, I'd had a lot of, big cases, but media wise, this one, Susan Smith herself had kind of drawn it along, crying about the babies and needing help. So I went down for one, obviously to see what was occurring, but two, so that later on, if I got tired or I got worn out and didn't want to proceed, I'd remember what it was about. And so what I saw that night was a car pulled out with the two boys still in the car seats. I saw grown men crying. And again, I think it was as much of the tragedy as the heartbreak, because people have been searching for those kids. People have been searching for those carjackers, working, hoping to recover those kids. And then to see it come to that, it was devastating. I always remember, because I had a young son at the time, the difficulty we go through as parents swapping those car seats. I'm going to take them out of my car and put them in your car, and then we're going to get the kids in it. And it's really a lot of work to keep them safe. And I did see kind of some raw irony that the very devices that are supposed to protect them ultimately were the implements of their death.
Yeah. Little Michael, 3 years old, Alexander, 14 months. Their father believed this story that a black man had carjacked his wife and kidnapped the children, taken the vehicle. Maybe didn't want to kidnap children, but had certainly taken the vehicle. And
sorry, y'all, I gotta hurry up and say this. I'm just looking at, when I was looking, watching it, we're all watching it, watching her talking to Mike, the lady who did this, Suzanne Smith. Just imagine, after you did that and you gotta show no empathy, not even a tear, because she didn't look like she was crying in the video. And of course she'll say black man, because that's some people would believe. You see, they're using taxpayer money to go search for these people who don't exist. You did this. And the fact that she could just sit there and just you got out that car, watch that car go down there with those kids strapped. They can't get out. They don't know how to get out. They're too young. And let them drown. And just left is insane, is actually insane. Now, anybody who got the audacity and the mindset to drown somebody is a psychopath to me, because that's so much suffering. I talked about that case with the black man who was in medical school, that the people allowed him to drown. He was brain dead, but I think he's doing okay. I need to check up on that case. I'll check up on that one. But they watched him drown. I'll put that up. You can go check that one out. But they watched him drown for 20 minutes. So the drowning in general is so freaky. It's so much suffering. That's so scary, and you don't know how long it takes to drown. Somebody's literally water is the scariest thing on earth. Is the scariest natural thing ever. You can't get away from it, and for somebody to willingly watch you drown and allow you to go out that way on their terms is a psychopath, and it's so sick. I don't have empathy for nobody. I don't care what mental health problems they got. I don't care about that in this situation. I just don't. Because you took another life, you took a child's life, you took your child's life. And that's all people see. And from these comments, people don't care about her. They're like, don't blame that on there. You just wanted a new life. They don't care she had mental health problems. She just wanted a new life, and that's why she got rid of her kids. And once we start looking at it that way, I think people will start realizing that it's not just the mental health problems, it's a people problem. And some people really do just need help in general. They need to stop blaming their mental health on everything, because it's not. A lot of people with mental health problems don't do this.
One thing that gets me, and I remember this very vividly. I mean, I remember this. This was back before the internet, really, before social media. This was a huge story. This was on the news every night, and people were just like, "My God, I hope they find these children." I think a red flag, though, is this whole story about a black man carjacked me, stole my car, and took my children. I feel like. And whenever I hear that, I've heard that over and over in other cases too. It almost takes me back to To Kill a Mockingbird. It sounds so absurd. Was that in any way a red flag for you with this case?
Well, and initially, I really thought, like I said, I was in trial in the other case, but I wasn't, I mean, not that I didn't care about the kids being returned, but I wasn't overly concerned that what she was saying happened had really happened. I actually thought perhaps it was some type of domestic situation. You know, she was estranged from her husband a little bit. Maybe she hides the kids out with her cousin, you know, down at Myrtle Beach or something like that, you know, to create some drama. Because from a law enforcement standpoint, there's a reason you call them a carjacker. You know, it's not a woman jacker or you know, that's a kidnapper. You know, it's not a baby jacker. It's their hierarchy is they're normally looking for the car, then they may be looking for money, then maybe a female to assault. So it's so far down the line that and, you know, and then when she tells her story that he stops long enough for her to get out, but says I don't have time to let the kids out, makes no sense. You know, like you said, you've heard other cases where inadvertently, you know, I steal your car, not realize that the baby's asleep in the back. You know, you've seen some cases like that, and very often those cases, they put the baby out at the gas station or something, and you know, take off with the car. So it really wasn't over concerning. I don't think it really hit home until we found the boys to realize that this was much bigger in a horrible, horrible way than we ever thought.
When did you all realize, or when did the SLED agents realize that maybe Susan was not being honest about what had happened?
You know, in a strange twist, and like you said, back then, you know, we didn't have all the different.
Also, let me say this because I'm gonna let it play after this. I think also when somebody steals somebody's kids, normally they'll call for ransom. I think that's a red flag because nobody ever called. I'm pretty sure. No, it's like, why would they take your kids and not like set them down somewhere? Why would they? What would they meet with your kids if they're not gonna call and just, like get money for it? So yeah, her story went end up already. I see that, and yeah, no matter, even if like, let's say it was an accident, even though she confessed, we all know it's not. Why would you? A mother would go down there and try to get her kids out that car.
News sources we can, but she was drawn from the beginning to the opportunity and the attention of being on the media. I remember I had raw footage from Channel 7 out of Spartanburg that was the first people on the scene to the house she went to. They had called David to come to the scene, and they're about to do the video. The camera lights are off. That was back in the old days when you had a big boy like me carrying the cameras, and then you had the anchor person doing the work. You know? So they, the anchor person says something to the effect, so David and Susan are standing in front of them ready for the camera, and she says, okay, you know, when the lights come on, then I'm gonna ask you, you know, your name and then what happened, whatever. Right before the lights come on, Susan looks at David and kind of giggles like it's exciting, like they're gonna be on TV, you know what I mean? And of course, poor David looks like a deer in the headlights. He looks like a guy who was just told your kids have been stolen. And so going through it, there were always kind of little instances, but I was going to say the media intensity, you know, because ultimately she was on every national media, you know, interviewed like the Today Show and all this stuff. And she was fine when she was getting the accolades and the sympathy. When they started questioning her a little bit, she started, you know, cracking. That's and so I think that media pressure helped. And then there were just slowly inconsistencies. The other thing is law enforcement always runs a dual investigation. If you tell me an alien took your child, then I'm going to go work on the alien case too, but I'm also going to check the logical things like family members. And so it you know, sometimes people say that's offensive, but you have to check out the victim's family too to kind of check that off the list. Fortunately, they kept that working, and ultimately it proved they were looking in the right spot.
You sought the death penalty. But she ended up getting life. And
Correct.
so do you have any inkling as to why that was? I mean, I'm not asking you to make a statement on,
No, I don't know.
you know, the morality of the death penalty or anything
Sure.
like that. But I mean, this is a very heinous case. And I know there was a lot out there at the time about the fact that I think Susan's stepfather had been engaged in some type of sexual relationship
Right.
with her.
Right.
She may have been a victim of sexual abuse, but there was also some questions about, I don't know, if
Yeah.
it was consensual and if it was continuing. I mean, that's a whole different kind of conversation. So this is a woman who's got some major issues.
Yes, it's. I'll give you kind of my view because it's funny. OJ was going on. OJ started before, it ended after, and we got a lot of credit, South Carolina as a whole, because they think anybody with an accent like this, it's going to be like Dukes of Hazzard or something, when we try a case. And so, we had a tight window, and the case went well.
He was
as far as the death penalty itself, and I know you said you're not, trying to get too deep. I always said, the defense, David Bruck, they did a tremendous job. Their whole goal is to make sure it is not the death penalty. They do death penalty defense all the time. And I always say, I'm not the yin to their yang. I don't wake up, bloodthirsty every morning going, who can I execute? I just view it more almost like a military officer. If we have the death penalty in South Carolina, and I do believe in death penalty, but if we have it, then you got to have people with the courage and the strength to work to apply it. Well, in this circumstance, I tried to treat Susan the same way I think anybody else should have been treated in that circumstance. If we didn't have the death penalty, whatever the most stringent penalty was, whatever we would have had, that's what she deserved. I also thought if the black man had done it, they would have run me out of office if I didn't seek the death penalty. If David Smith had committed the crime, same deal. So I just thought Susan needed to be treated in the same manner. The difficulty there is it makes people uncomfortable to think, one, a mother would do that. Two, somebody that looks like our coworker, our sister, it's almost easier for us to accept if it is the bad guy because you can figure out how it won't happen to you and I. Because every day I left work, my wife was home with our child, and I never feared for my child's life. So that was a reason that in my time with David Smith, convinced me that going forward, even though it'd been easier to kind of pull the plug and not seek the death penalty, going forward was, the right move. From the jury themselves, one, back then, until 1996, jurors were not told that life did not mean life. In 1996 in South Carolina, it started meaning, if you got a life sentence, you served life. Back then, it was parole eligibility for 30 years, and hence we're talking about it now, 30 years later. So many of the jurors thought that if she was in jail, she would be remorseful, think about the boys, and that life sentence would be, more appropriate. If she was remorseful, maybe I'd agree, but you've seen from her conduct in prison, sex with guards and other things, that she's been focused on Susan, not that. The second thing I'd say, and again, I give the defense credit, we did not change venue. We stayed in Union County for the jury, and pretty much everybody knows everybody. So there was also the component, if I give your loved one the death penalty, I'm going to see you at the grocery store, later. And I think that puts some pressure on jurors too.
You mentioned her conduct and
definitely, she's definitely narcissistic. That's all she's all about, Susan. Like he said, when he was mentioning her with the camera, she was excited for the camera. What was she gonna get out of this? Everybody's worried about your kids, okay? Yeah, and I think a lot of women who do this, and women who let's split from this for a second, because I'm gonna be talking about this on this channel more too, about these teachers who's hooking up with their disgusting. They're hooking up with their children and their students. And a lot of women don't get called pedophiles. A lot of women don't get a lot of time because they're women and that they're seen as caregivers. That's not a caregiver. So with her, before they found out she wasn't she killed them, they're seeing her as this caring mother and who can do no harm, who look normal to all of us. But little did we know the woman was evil as I don't know what. And I wasn't even born during this, y'all. During this, when she was when that happened. I was born 98, so that's crazy that this happened before. But you know what? It's still happening now, so I'm not surprised.
It's supposed to be about rehabilitation, and that's a whole nother conversation too. I mean,
Sure.
Sometimes people are just kind of warehoused, and sometimes they get better, sometimes they get worse. But it's also up to them to take part in some programming or something to better themselves. And you're right, she's gotten in trouble for having sex with a prison guard. I think she's had some other relationships when she's been in there, maybe with some inmates. She's having she has suitors in there. You know, she has people in there. She's having these conversations on her tablet or what have you.
I know it's crazy. There are so many people who are obsessed with like serial killers. Y'all remember, and I'm talking about like sexually obsessed, like who wants to be in love with these people. Y'all remember, who was it? If I don't even want to look it up. The satanic man who they said was fine, he was not. He had like people all these young girls outside the court waiting for him, trying to like write him love letters, and they gave him so much like attention. He liked the attention. I'm like, he wasn't even cute, and y'all are like crazy. They was like, oh, he wouldn't kill me, and I'm like, you want to bet? And I don't understand it. What is the affection from that? That's so sick. Why would they look at her? She's a child killer. Like, why would you even look her way? She has no remorse though either. Like, you're not thinking about your kids. You had 30 years and you had the nerve to say you'll be a good stepmother. No.
I think I read one where the guy said that she'd be a great mom. You know, you'd be a great mom, babe. You know, and I just can't even imagine that. Like, I think Susan Smith needs to be kept as far away from children as humanly possible. I mean, are you going to oppose her release when she comes up for parole? Because I can't imagine. I'm not seeing many signs. She hasn't gotten into big trouble recently, but I'm not seeing many signs that show me that there's been a whole lot of rehabilitation here.
I think you assessed it well. I think, you know, if you look at her record over the 30 years, I mean, I've seen much, much worse, you know, behavior-wise, assaults on the guards, you know, contraband, things of that nature. I think, to me, her behavior is a reflection of who she is, which is really, Susan's always been about Susan. I mean, all the way even going back to, you know, laughing about we're going to be on TV, or the SLED agent taking her to the polygraph and her flirting with them, saying, it's a beautiful day, I wish you and I were riding to the beach instead of doing this. Or, you know, she's just, I mean, it's the way she's wired. She's always been about how things affect her. I mean, and nothing more telling than, you know, what happened with the kids. But so I try not to be vindictive about parole, but I try to kind of call it the way I see it. And so normally what I tell a parole board is I believe in truth in sentencing. The jury gave her life under the belief she would be serving in life, and that's what she needs to do. It'll be interesting. I assume we'll hear from David Smith. I always tell people, you know, ultimately cameras were excluded from the courtroom, and you're kind of darned if you do, darned if you don't, if you're a prosecutor. If I act like I want cameras, then it's because I'm a glory hound. If I act like I don't, then I've got something to hide. But in this circumstance, I said selfishly, the only thing I wish everybody in the country, everybody in the world could have seen David Smith's testimony, because, you know, by the time we got ready to try it, we were ready right after the first of the year. This happened kind of around Halloween, and the defense said they needed more time. And what they did, they kind of worked the public opinion, and that's when you started hearing Susan, the victim, you know, whether the victim of the stepfather, the victim of the husband, the victim of the boyfriend, or whatever. And so by the time we get around to trial, I was having people question why I was even trying poor Susan. And I always said, when David Smith took the stand in the penalty phase of death penalty case, what I would always do is basically bring the victims back to life. In other words, I would talk about the good times, you know, and David talked about Michael couldn't say Dalmatians, he liked 101 Diametrons. You know, and he would tell stories about taking them to the park, tell stories, sadly or ironically, how the boys didn't like to take baths. They didn't like to get wet, which was, you know, odd in and of itself. But by the time David got through, I would then take him, basically I'd bring the loved ones alive and then go to their death again. And so David went through that whole range of emotions. And I said, if anybody could have seen that man testify, because, you know, it would have been easier for him to walk away too. But if anybody could have seen David Smith testify, they'd know why we were in that courtroom that day.
Yes, y'all. So y'all saw that. This woman, I'm talking about, it's always like the moms who, you know, they commit these crimes. And like I said, not all moms do this. But these child killers, they come out thinking just because you served your time that people will forgive you. No, no one will forgive you. This woman is a killer. I really hope they don't give her parole. They gave her life in prison that she deserved to serve life. I never understood why it'd be like 20 to like 30 to life. No. And you know what? The justice system, once again, it's hard to talk about the justice system as much as I do. You'll be surprised. It's like, yeah, you want these criminals, we all want these criminals off the street, but then you got some people be like, well, maybe she served all her time, might as well let her integrate back into society. But you see her, this woman didn't learn nothing. They said she didn't even take a class while she was there. A lot of people try to do something. This woman was like doing drugs, hooking up with freaking prison guards, like probably didn't even think about her kids. The whole point of this, she's a selfish, narcissistic woman, psychopathic tendencies, do not ever deserve to be out here again. The woman, I can't say girl because she was younger when she left. And it's crazy that this happened in 1994. Like I said, I wasn't even born. And actually hearing about the case is just a really dark case. But a really sick woman, y'all. I'm not a fan of child killers. Don't think they should ever be back integrated into society because just disgusting. This woman made up a whole story, wasted taxpayer money, knowing they gonna go look for these kids. Like realistically, when she killed her kids and tried to go on TV saying somebody carjacked them, a black man, everybody gonna go look for this black man. It's like, and then like he said, there was no ransom because normally, you know, if they not gonna set your kids out the car on the road, they're gonna call you for a ransom. Nobody did that, so they said that's why her story messed up. So and then eventually, finally, she said that she did it. Y'all know, it's like I said, just some psychopaths who can actually do that and go on TV, not cry, be happy that there's cameras everywhere, and she's happy that there's cameras. I don't understand what she was trying to get for this. And then had the audacity to say she would be a good stepmom. You know what? Some women deserve to burn, and she's one of them. So on that note, I will let you guys go. I have a lot of more videos to record. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Turn on notifications, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.